Okay, so let me ask this one. It says, what can we do to protect and or better our mental health as a people? When I say as a people, I mean black people.
Protect,
And or better our mental health as a people.
protect and or better our mental health. I would say accept who we are. A big part of the work that I do is really my work is reframing the context in which we see ourselves as a
Yes.
people. There's a lot of negativity and demonization around who we are naturally, which, as we try to navigate this world, has a deep and profound impact on our mental health for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to get by in the world and you want to do right and you want to be a good citizen, but everything you are naturally is demonized, then you're going to be out of your mind. Do you get what I'm saying? So a big part of that is accepting yourself for who you are, um, defining yourself, because the two aspects of mentality or psychology is our verbal program and our visual program, what we imagine of ourselves and what we are affirming of ourselves. So defining ourselves is really important in our own language and from our own culture, meaning looking at who we are from our own perspective and taking the time to study and be aware of who we are from our own perspective, and
Yes.
then make a judgment on what you're doing and how you feel about yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. So living as close as possible to our truth is the best way for the mental health.
And I also feel like sometimes, and I maybe, can maybe speak for a lot of people, I can also just speak for myself. And sometimes I feel because in the Western world, you always, the only reason why we call ourselves black is only a Western concept. Because going to, when I go and play this game in Ghana, for example, and I start talking about black people, black man, black woman, they can't relate to that.
They
They're
can't
just like,
relate.
I'm just a man,
Yeah,
I'm just a woman.
just a
These
man.
are just our children.
Yeah,
So the
yeah,
concept of blackness is generally born in the Western world, be it
exactly.
America, be it be it in Europe. And I feel like when we call ourselves black, there's always like a notion with comparison.
Mm-hmm,
Because if we're
mm-hmm.
black, then we're only black because we got a contrast,
Yes,
something to compare ourselves
exactly.
to. So I think inherently it's about just not comparing yourself,
Yeah,
and whether that be to other races or even to our own people.
mm-hmm.
I think it's so cliche, but comparison is the killer of joy.
Yes.
And when we compare ourselves with people that that have a whole different upbringing than us, or a whole different,
View on
had
life.
different resources than us
Mm-hmm.
growing up in different scenarios in life, and then we're trying to measure ourselves to that.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of unhealthy habits that come from that,
literally.
and I think you can see that.
100.
And it comes out in so many ways, and some people pretend that, oh, that has nothing to do with XYZ, or you know just the whole idea of impressing,
Mm-hmm.
trying to impress people, maybe with resources you don't have,
Yeah, but this all
not
comes
making
back from
financial.
it comes back to the point
Yes.
of not accepting yourself for who you are. We don't feel like we're enough, and it is because of this identity that we have that
Yeah.
was created to look like
Yes.
something that's less than or something that's inferior. Black has been created to be inferior, and the
Yes.
more you associate to that, you're always going to feel you could have all the money, all the riches, all the success in the world, you'd still feel inferior based on that contrast. And just as you said, when you go to the motherland, you realize the privilege of being just a human,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
a lot diminishes when you get that privilege of just being a human being, and all of a sudden you're exposed and expanded in your perception of yourself.
There I have like kind of two questions that come out of that. Let me start with one. But do you also feel like because we're talking about when we go back to the motherland, we are not black there. We're just who we are.
No, yeah.
But then also, don't you also feel like, okay, I can even more so say because I'm light skinned as well, but don't you always feel like also as a black man go living in Kenya because you lived in Kenya
Yeah.
for years actually?
Yeah,
Oh,
yes.
yeah. So, don't you feel like going there too, there's a level of European privilege that you have there with,
Me?
yes,
No.
not at all. Because there's a lot, because when you,
The
yeah,
privileges exist in no. The
no,
privilege I have privilege with women because of where I'm from. That's it.
you mean what? Because you're European.
No, no, I'm not European, but because I'm
To them, you are pretty
British.
much
No, to
so.
them, I'm
Yes,
from London, so it
yes,
means I've got money.
yes.
That's the only privilege I have is
Okay.
with how women might perceive my money. But in general, because look, you look at me. If I stand in Nairobi, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between me and a local guy. There is no difference.
Mm, really?
I swear to God. In fact, they dress better than me. Most of them, honestly.
Okay, maybe I haven't been to Nairobi to be
Even
fair. Yeah.
Nigeria. You've been Nigeria.
Yes,
When
yes.
I went Nigeria, yeah, I was ashamed of myself. How slack I
Yeah,
was
of
dressing.
course, Nigerians they don't play
Nigerians don't play when it
with the
comes.
drip.
I
Yeah.
went out to a party and I had to go back to my hotel and revise
Shame.
my outfit because these men were not kidding.
Yeah,
And
Nigerians are
so,
dripping.
and so, for me, there is no privilege. In fact, it's the opposite.
Really?
Yeah, if I the moment, I'll just give you a few scenarios. The moment someone, let's say the authorities, find out I'm from England, they want to take advantage of that. That's a disadvantage. Me knowing Swahili makes them treat me like a local. You get it? If I start speaking in my English accent, they now think that they could take more advantage of me. Do you get what I'm saying?
And are you?
Or another
Yeah.
disadvantage is if I'm going, another disadvantage is if I go out, for example, and and if I go out and I wanna get something, like the way they would if I speak with my English accent, they're gonna charge me more
Yeah,
for
that's true.
something that should be
Yes.
a local price,
Yes.
something that should be local, right?
Sorry.
She's right. Something that should be
Yeah.
local, they're gonna charge me more for it.
Yeah,
Does
that's
that
true.
make
That's
sense?
true. Yes. Yes.
So it's a lot of disadvantages.
Do you feel like I'm sorry? Another question of the game was, because we were talking about blackness and how we only become black when we come to Europe or America,
Yeah.
because it's a quite political term rather than anything else. Because we are not. Well, I always thought that was really weird growing up because I never. You're not black. It's actually not. It's just simply not your color. So I always wondered, and there's a question in the card game as well that asks like, should we even label ourselves as black, or do you think that we should redefine?
I think in this day and age that that label needs to evolve because black, we've gone through a transition from being Negro, colored, and so black was actually a term that was really used to lift us up out of
Yes.
a another political agenda that made us look even more inferior. The term black was an empowering one, but that's
Yes.
the last 100 years.
It's
And so
outdated
yeah,
now.
it is.
Yeah.
It's run its course, and because we have access to world knowledge, because the motherland is so accessible, because repatriation is a real thing, because we are leaders of industries and things like that, we now have a much greater opportunity to label ourselves in a way that really shows the majesty of who we are. I say people of nature because that immediately references everything that we boast about, the power that we say we have, the origins we say we have, the glory we talk about of ourselves, the potential we always sing and praise ourselves about, can be understood when you understand that we are people of nature.
But I think it's such a long term.
It is. I'm just saying that's what I use. I'm not saying.
Okay,
I'm not saying it's the best
yeah.
one.
Fair enough. Yeah, because I was
I'm
just
just saying it's
wondering what
it's
could
it,
it be? What could it be? And it's so true that I'm playing around with like some new ideas for things, and I think I'm really big on, especially 2024 coming on New Year, whether this is the new year or not. I mean, there's a whole other
yeah.
conversation. But it's really thinking about redefining terms and words, especially the ones identify myself
Hmm.
with.
Hmm.
And it's true, and I like your idea about whether the term black being was progressive at some point, but it's now outdated. And I think we have to treat a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
yes,
we
yes.
are in a position now that is going to, like, we're the ones we're sitting in the hot seat. What we do today is
Yes,
going to be what my daughter and her peers will use
yes,
as their language. It'll be part of
yes,
their lexicon, their culture.
yes.
And so, people of nature is what I say again, just to, yeah, to reference our origins. There's nothing came before nature other than
Yes.
God. You get what I'm saying? And so
It's a nice way
it's
to
got
position ourselves.
it's
Yes.
but it's not, it is the position. You get it?
Yes.
Everyone, every scientist across the world will stand before you and say that the oldest living human being is an African,
Yes.
right? So all anthropologists will say that. That's not even an argument, right? And so that that is a person of nature.
Yes.
That is the first human being, and that is who we are. You know,
What would a perfect world for our people look like? Because I think we always speak, and we should be, about things that should change, we're not happy with, you know, breaking barriers and addressing racism. But does a perfect world actually look like for us? What's your idea of a perfect world
what's
for us?
my idea of a
Yes.
perfect world? Is I've been having this conversation recently. This world is a game, and our ancestors knew that, and that's why Africa has one principle that all African cultures follow, and that's the principle of Maat, keeping order, truth, balance, and harmony with themselves and nature.
Yes.
From that, they create their own unique culture that reflects that. And
Yes.
that's what comes, all this beautiful, bountiful color and design of African expression comes around from that.
Yeah.
And so, but the focus is always, regardless of what we do, whether it's dancing, food, jewelry, a style of clothing, hairstyle, it's always linked to the spiritual game that they're playing. There's a spiritual narrative to everything. Even if a woman's shaking her ass, if she's wearing a big choker on her neck, or if a man has some clasp on his leg, or he's cut his hair a certain way, you can almost always link it to some spiritual program that he's following. You see, that now informs the expression that he's putting out there for everyone to see. Today, we express aimlessly with no responsibility for what we are doing with that expression. You see, you look at Africa, for example, Africa in its antiquity, meaning in its history, is the most liberated space on earth when it comes to freedom of expression. And you look at the people, it's like, how do these people live like that? How do these people express themselves like that? The boxes that we have over here, whether that's these gender boxes or boxes of a man must wear this, a woman must wear that. Africa has never been in those boxes.
You think?
No, I think I know.
What, that man and woman dress different? But for example,
Not that they
there's
don't dress different.
yeah.
I'm talking about the limitations. of sexual identity, right, and how that's expressed,
Yeah.
were nowhere near as restrictive as they are in this environment.
Can you give some
An
examples?
example is women always worked. Women always were a part of eldership and spiritual leadership. Most African countries were matriarchal. So even though there was a king, the woman would choose the king. For example, another example is no one ever wore trousers. So this concept of a man wearing trousers wasn't there either. So what were men wearing? What looks like skirts. You get it? Most cultures wear makeup, the men more so than the women
That's
in
very
African
similar. Yeah.
cultures. Also, you would find that you'd have societies where clothing wasn't to cover or hide indecency, but it was more a function of the environment or an expression of your status in society. So clothing was adornment, you see. So nakedness was the standard, you see. Now we would lose our minds. Let's say we clicked our fingers
Yeah, and we all
and
naked.
me and you
Yeah.
done this interview naked, right? Not not just the people watching, but we would lose our minds trying to get
Yeah.
through this interview knowing that the other person is fully naked, because we can't imagine a world where we are at peace with our nature, where we are at peace, where there is no fear of some impending doom. Oh my God, I'm going to be violated. Someone's going to do this. Someone's going to see me. There are whole societies of people who live like that as a standard, even to this day.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean.
It's that shame. Shame
There is no
politics.
shame. It's the
I
shame
mean,
of nature.
in the Western world,
That's
there's
what I
a lot
mean.
of
So,
shame for a lot of things. Yeah.
Africa, when it comes to expression, is much more free, and you have to ask the question: how and why? It's because their perception on reality, first and foremost, is to do with how they are answering the spiritual laws. Everything they do is a part of a
Yes.
spiritual program,
Yeah.
you see, which frees them to express how they want, because all their expressions are following that program. Today, we have no spiritual program. We just express aimlessly, and therefore we violate oftenly. Do you get what I'm saying? And that's what I mean. Is a huge disparity. So to answer your question, what does a free, what does paradise look like? Your question.
No,
For
it's funny. No, what does I ask? What does a perfect world for our
so a
people look like?
perfect world is where everyone is free to express themselves at the level they are called to, but also everyone is following the one spiritual order and the law of nature, which is known as Maat. It's not a religion; it's an observation of how nature moves with us. You see, and yeah, because in that world, you still get to be you. You don't have to live life like how I see it. I don't have to live life like how you see it. But we respect each other as a person who's on their spiritual journey and who's manifested here to fulfill an aspect of the one spirit we all come from, right? And so I dare not violate you, because to violate you is literally violating myself.
It is like that a lot. Like we don't realize that often the things we do unto other people, we're just hurting ourselves with
Yeah.
it.
And
It's
that's a
like this
lack.
idea of separation
Exactly.
when actually there's just oneness and we all connected, and then
Exactly.
everything you put onto somebody, you just really like put onto yourself. But we don't have that idea of oneness anymore. We think we're separated, and I can just go and slap you and turn around, and it has nothing to do with
This
me.
is it. And so that is what's got us actually living in this sheer fear and
Yeah.
shame and lack.
How do you overcome the challenges of living in a world surrounded by white privilege?
how do I overcome the challenges of living in a world surrounded by white people? I just focus on my people.
Mm.
I focus on my people. I focus on my people.
Yeah.
I'm actually, we are such a mine of discovery. We're a treasure
Mm.
that I'm genuinely so fascinated by. It's like I'm not one of us. You get it?
Mm.
I love my people so much. And that's why I spend all my time where we are, where we're from, and on things that concern us, but in the most beautiful way. I also don't like this narrative of despair that we have. It's like, no, we are from nature, and nature is of God, so therefore we deserve heaven. Heaven is our birthright. So now I'm
Yeah.
just looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
And so give me a little bit of background from you,
Mm.
because obviously when we spoke you always lived in Kenya, and then
Yeah,
you just came recently and decided to
yeah.
spend a few months here.
But I grew up in London.
Yeah, so what's the,
I
can you
grew up
just
in London. I'm
talk a bit?
Jamaican, but
Okay.
I'm Jamaican Vincentian. I grew up in Northwest London, Northwest 9. You get me? Um, um, yeah, but I just was raised in a family that always appreciated Africa and taught us that our origins are from the motherland. I went to predominantly white schools, and so I experienced violent racism as
Yeah,
a child,
yeah, me too. Yeah.
like violent, and but I had a very rich cultural home. So I had the dynamics of super,
Mm.
super proud black Caribbean family, but living in an area that was, you know, I get chased home.
Can you
People
tell
couldn't.
me a story about that and kind of like what that taught you in hindsight?
Well, it just confused me
Yeah.
because as far as I'm concerned, you know, my family, my history, my people, my legacy is rich and beautiful because that's what I see. But then I'm going out in the street and I'm being called monkey and nigger, and I'm being thrown out of school for saying very normal things. And so it just confused me. I was like, huh? What's going on here? This is weird. There's something wrong here. It's either I'm evil or they are, or there's some sort of, I don't get this because I'm just being myself. The question I've always had is, why is being myself always a bad thing? This doesn't make sense because
Mm.
I'm not a bad guy.
Mm.
I love.
Mm.
So why do I always get treated like that? Why am I walking down
Yeah.
the road and police are pulling guns out on me?
Yeah.
Why am I walking down the road and these white guys are trying to egg me?
Mm.
Why am I being thrown out of class for doing something my white friend did? Why were me and me and
Yeah.
my white friend are play fighting on the street? Like we're just actually mimicking wrestling. We're having fun, but I'm getting everyone pull me off him and like rough me up thinking that I'm attacking him. What's
Mm.
going on? I don't understand this. This makes no sense and I need answers.
Mm.
Then as you grow, it keeps happening and the contempt grows bigger. I don't get jobs because of my name. I get thrown out of school. Police arrest me and falsely accuse me, plant drugs on me. All of these kind of things are like, okay, I'm like, okay. Then you watch Roots and you learn about the dynamics of why you're even in England in the first place. Like, hold on, what the hell is going on?
Mm.
This is weird
Mm.
because I don't look at life like this, but life is looking at me like this. So
Yeah.
I need to find out what's going on, or I'm gonna go mad.
What? How did your parents react to all of that? Because you said you come from a very strong cultural household,
Mm,
and I feel like when I grew up in Vienna, also around like just white people literally, and always going through a lot of like violent racism as well. And even in school, like you said, it's always your fault for some reason, and you're
mm,
doing the same thing like all the other kids, but you like the bad one.
mm,
And I feel like my parents, for example, my mom or my dad, none of like they always were like very. especially my dad, like African, like you just listen to what your parents, you know how I don't know if how far you know with African parents, but they're very
Yeah,
academic. They're like,
yeah,
if your teacher says A, you
yeah,
do A plus,
yeah.
you know, and it was like always my fault, and I feel like I would have loved a bit more support because it just made me grow up feeling like everything I do is wrong,
Mm,
not looking at the odds of why I was always blamed for everything in
yeah.
school. How did your parents kind of react to that?
My parents were very supportive in the sense that they understood the conditions of the environment I was growing up in. So they never really they always they never took sides with the schools and authorities when they
Mm,
spoke about me in a certain way
yeah.
because they knew, they were
Okay.
very aware that, oh, this is
That's so
racism, this,
important. Like
and
we
so
really
that
need to
was that
support
was
our
really
children.
that was really good, but it didn't stop it from happening,
Okay, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. And you still had to go through the school system. It's
still
not
had
that
to
they
go
can
through
take you
it
out. Yeah,
because they
yeah,
didn't, yeah, they didn't have the confidence to not put me in it.
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, again, you can only do so much,
Hmm.
and they put enough in me that protected me when I was out, where I had discernment and I can make the right decisions about,
Hmm.
what I go out there and do in the world.